Well. Hello, everybody. We are here at a new time, Monday morning for ELF Live. We are going to be doing this show now in the season, and we're all super excited that we had week one of the European League of Football this past weekend. It was like Christmas morning, waking up on Saturday and watching these games. I'm here with my co-host, Alex Malchow, who is an ELF expert. Alex, welcome to the show. How you doing, man? How do you feel after
I'm
this
doing
week?
I'm doing great. What a fantastic weekend of ELF football. We had some amazing plays. The players showed out. The fans showed out for week one. It was like you said, Christmas morning. I couldn't sleep all night waiting Friday night for kickoff, and I think everything met my expectations and more.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it was just so fun all weekend. We had some great games, great football. Like you said, the fans showed out. We'll talk about that. A couple of the big stadiums with a lot of fans. So we got a lot to talk about today. Just you guys in the chat, ding boom sister, permanently changing to Monday. No, we are just adding a Monday show. So this is going to be a weekly show that we'll do on Monday, kind of recapping the weekend. And then we'll still have our Thursday show as well that will kind of preview the weekend. So we're in season now. Hey, just like the football players, us media guys are in season. It's go time. We got more shows. So, Alex, without further ado, let's take a look at the games that we had this past weekend for week one of the ELF season. Look at that beautiful lineup right there. So, our first game that kicked off the year, Vienna Vikings at the Fehervar Enthroners. Alex, talk to me a little bit. You're a big Ben Holmes guy. This was his ELF debut. Give me the detail.
Yes. Kicking off the season again, the very first game of season 4 in the ELF. Just awesome to see the Vikings back in action. Awesome to see both teams on the field. I was impressed by the Vikings overall. Ben Holmes played well. The offense for the Vikings was moving up and down the field. And on the other side of the ball, we didn't really know what to expect from the Enthroners, but I think they looked much improved on last year.
I agree 100%. I know people like to, kind of hit on the Enthroners a little bit. They looked pretty solid, especially at times they had flashes. And Nathaniel Roberts, I got to give him a shout out because a lot of people were a little confused as to why I had him in the top 5 for wide receivers in the ELF. He's old. You can't have an old wide receiver like this in the top 5. He showed out, and he showed that he's still one of the top weapons in the ELF. Of course, Vienna being the more established team and super deep roster and one of the top teams in the league did end up kind of running away with it. But I think that there were times where the Enthroners, they looked solid, man.
Yeah, I think the word you're looking for is savvy, Nick, not old, savvy. He's got this savvy veteran experience, uh, and it showed, right? Giving the Enthroners some juice on offense. But let's talk about the victors here in Vienna. Ben Holmes, 3 touchdowns to Jordan Bua, and Kari Paranen, the Finnish running back, 3 scores as well. So and I think we have to remember 43 points offensively without their American import playing. Weston Carr didn't play in this game. So something to note moving forward.
That is a great point. And I'm not exactly sure what happens. I did hear some rumors that maybe he got a little bit tweaked in warmups, or maybe he was sick. But that's a great thing to note there, that they still put up this amount of points without their number one receiver. I mean, of course, they still have talented weapons like Kari, like Jordan Bua. But just imagine once their A receiver is back as well. But I think, what I take away from this game a little bit is the Enthroners have some potential, man. They do have some potential. I saw little flashes there, and I think they can piece some things together and really take a step forward this year. And I think that's what's would be great for them and also great for the league. The Eastern Conference is interesting, man. I mean, a lot of people like to bag on the Eastern Conference and say it's the weakest conference, but I don't know if I would even say that, especially in the top half. Of course, you've got Berlin, you've got Wroclaw, you've got Vienna, and then Prague and the Enthroners. We'll talk about Prague in a little bit, but what do you think when people say the Eastern Conference is the weakest?
I think they're looking at last year and saying that. I think what we saw in week 1 showed this Eastern Conference is no pushover. I think even the quote unquote bottom teams of the Eastern Conference, the Enthroners and Prague, showed some big improvements from last season. And we'll talk about them later, but look out for Wroclaw and the Panthers.
Yeah, we're excited to talk about that game. So yeah, that's what we got with the opening game. Oh yeah, we got the highlights. So we're gonna show the highlights, Max. I thought you were just gonna play the highlights for us while we talked about this. We're gonna have okay. There we go. Here's our highlights. A little bit of the highlights.
Yeah, great to have the highlights on. Thank you, Maxi, for throwing this together. Here we see the first touchdown of the game. Kari Parayan takes it in, and I think early on we saw the difference up front. Don't you think, Nick?
Absolutely, and you know the Vienna offensive line is one of the best in the league, and just those big Austrians there. And then Kari, the Finnish running back. This is a guy I got to play against him a couple of years ago when he was playing in the GFL. This dude runs hard, and I love to see him really, standing out there as one of the best European running backs, or if not one of the best running backs in the European League of Football. Love it. We see right there Jordan Bua. This guy's an athlete. This is a dude. I talked to him at the kickoff press conference events, and this is a guy hungry to put on a show this year. I think last year he didn't get really the chance to show the league his true potential, and we saw with this first opening game here that Jordan Bua is an elite weapon.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns. I mean, we just touched on European talent. I think Jordan Bua is like the example of that at the receiver position. He's got speed to burn, hands, and yeah, really exciting player to watch.
Absolutely. All right, so here we see we got a couple more highlights, but I don't think we'll run through all the highlights here. We do see this pick six. This was damn impressive. Hey, this is your guy Ben Holmes, his first pick six in the league. I think he responded well, but after, what do you think?
He did. You know, his receiver fell down there. You know, Ben VP, as the Vikings have dubbed it. I can't take credit for that. Yeah, he threw a pick here, but overall 3 touchdowns on the day, and kept the Vikings rolling on offense. But this was just an impressive break on the ball from Rodion Henrique, one of the we talked about Enthroners not having any American defensive backs, so they'll need Henrique to step up and be the guy in the field.
I mean, right there, this is a play that looks like an American defensive back right there. So very impressive. All right, so that is what we got for the first game in our slot. Exciting one out in the East. Let's move to the Central Conference. Alex, Barcelona Dragons, they flew up to Switzerland to play the Helvetic Mercenaries in the beautiful country of Switzerland. Talk to me a little bit about this game.
Yeah, this was a really exciting back and forth game. I think 2 really evenly matched teams. I predicted in my pick'em that the Mercenaries would get this done, but ended up being wrong with the Dragons coming back. A really strong performance from Levi Lewis, and I think the Dragons' defense overall. So shout out to the Dragons. I doubted them, and they got a W.
Yeah, man. I think I love to see that. I love to see the Dragons having a nice start to the season, a little excitement here with Levi Lewis. I thought he looked really, really good. The guy is, I mean, he reminds me a lot of Kyler Murray. To me, he's the Kyler Murray of the ELF. And after this past offseason where Madrid was getting all of the buzz in Spain, and even on this show, we talk a lot about Madrid, and we're like, I don't really know how the Dragons are going to look this year. So it was nice to see them kind of start off on a good foot with a competitive back and forth game. And let's not forget about the Mercenaries. Obviously, they had some off-season drama and turmoil. And I think they came out and played pretty solid as well. Here we see Carlton Aiken on the draw. This guy's got the speed, man. Takes it all the way to the house.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, Carlton said this on Twitter after the game. A lot of people were kind of doubting why he was the signee, why he was QB1 for Switzerland. And he went out and proved that he's a legit ELF starting quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it's always great when guys are able to kind of prove a little bit of the doubters wrong. And I know here even on this show sometimes we raise some questions, whether it be about a quarterback or a receiver or a team having 2 American defensive linemen. And what we want all these players to prove people wrong, even if it's us. So I love that Carlton Aiken was able to do that. Here we see a great kickoff return. Another thing that was impressive is Barcelona kind of came back in this game. I see, right here, the Mercenaries are up, and Barcelona kind of stayed poised and really came back.
Yeah, this is a resilient bunch in Barcelona, and I think part of that is with Levi Lewis, that leadership, building a program in college that he took to new heights, and I think is going to do the same and push Barcelona as far as they can go this season. I really like their American receiver as well, Emoni Donadell. Seems like him and Levi Lewis have built some chemistry early on, and I think they'll be a fun duo to watch moving forward.
Absolutely, man. And what you touched on, Levi Lewis having that really successful collegiate career, playing at the Division 1A level down in Louisiana Lafayette, winning bowl games, setting records. What do you think is the ceiling for the Barcelona Dragons under Levi Lewis's leadership here?
Yeah, it's tough to see them in the playoffs, just because the league is so talented this year. But I think one thing that they can bring is more parity to the league. I think they can win a few games, maybe upset a playoff team down the line of the season. So, yeah, I don't see them as a playoff team yet. I still see them as kind of maybe in the bottom third of the league, but I hope I'm wrong and Dragons keep rolling.
It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think it is fair to say that probably both of these teams would be considered by most to be in the bottom third of the league. This is a Central Conference matchup. How do you think that these Central Conference kind of bottom third teams match up against those Eastern Conference ones we just touched on, Fehervar and Prague?
Wow, that's a great question. I think I'd love to see it on the field. I think Dragons versus Enthroners would be a good matchup, and I think I'll take the Dragons just because they got the W and maybe have a more proven quarterback in Levi Lewis.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And here we see at the end of the highlights here, we're about to wrap this up with this game, but that Levi Lewis marches down there and gets the game-winning touchdown to seal the deal and get the Dragons off 1-0 to exit Switzerland and escape with the win. All right. That's what we got for this game right here. Are we moving on to that?
Love to see the players having fun like that, scoring game-winning touchdown and dogpiling. So I love that passion, and I think we'll see more of that from the Dragons because, like we said, these guys have been through a lot and want to keep pushing and making their own restart in the new era of the Dragons.
Exactly, man. It's so great to see guys like having these moments on field. You know, we've had a long off season. A lot of stuff has happened off the field for a lot of different teams. But for these guys to actually be able to finally get on the field, put the pads on, play football, have a game-winning drive, have a competitive back and forth game. I mean, this is what it's all about, and we love to see that. European football just taking off. All right. So that was a great game in the Central Conference. The next game, Alex, also a Central Conference matchup. Little bit less exciting. The Raiders T-Roll versus the Milano Seamen. This one turned out to be a little bit of a blowout, 32-0. Alex, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, it was a little disappointing. You know, this is our Saturday nightcap, if you will, of the opening day. But you just got to give credit to the Raiders. I think they really showed out. They looked so much more physical than Milan, I would say. Really kind of bullying the Seamen around the field. And but let's give credit to the Raiders. D'Angelo Fulford played really well. I like their new receiver, Darren Chafin. But I think, yeah, they're just a physical defense that Milan didn't seem ready for.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Raiders are just a kind of a traditional powerhouse for years. And I think that they've just reached a higher level of physicality, especially in the trenches here. It's just something that's been building for years and years that I think, the Italian trenches are a little bit behind. I also, I was a little bit disappointed with the Milano Seamen offense. Unfortunately, obviously they had Luke Zaradka for years, and they moved off him. And they have Zach Bronkhorst now, and it wasn't a fantastic debut for him. What do you think about his performance?
Yeah, tough debut for the whole Milan offense, really, with Zach included. 0 points. I believe they're the only team to be shut out this weekend. And yeah, hopefully Patrick Carr, like we talked about off there, didn't seem to get a lot of action in this one. Hopefully he can play next week and give him a little juice from the running back spot.
Exactly. And that's something that's been kind of a question mark for a lot of us who watch the ELF is, okay, Milano Seamen, they're the only team that's gone with an A running back, Patrick Carr, who was sensational and great in college, played at Houston, I believe, Division 1A, big time football. Only team to have an American running back. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I did hear that maybe he got a little tweaked, a little banged up. And that's why he wasn't as involved. Maybe we'll see him in the coming weeks really kind of shine out and show that, hey, an American running back can be worth it. But in this first game here, it was all Raiders, man.
Yeah, we need a playmaker from Milan to step up. I don't know if it's going to be Juan Flores, the rookie of the year last season, or Patrick Carr, but yeah, hopefully their offense shows some life next week.
Yeah. So this was, this one turned out to be a little bit Raiders running away with it. And honestly, solid start for the Raiders. Kudos to them, because this was also a team that, I don't know, personally, I wasn't given too much love to in the offseason, kind of looking at them as a little bit so. I think they had a strong debut here in the 2024 season. I think that, they're going through a little bit of a rebuild and kind of a reinvention of who they are. With new coaching staff and new key players. And there we see right there, Marco Schneider. This guy's an absolute baller, little Schneider. But kudos to the Raiders for this strong debut, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. I think they played with a little bit of chip on their shoulder, to be honest, Nick. I think they seem a little bit ticked off, a little bit, maybe they feel overlooked by us ELF experts. And they came out and bullied Milan.
I think that's a great way to put it, man. That's kind of, they did play a little bit with the chip on their shoulder and like pretty, trying something to prove there. And they kind of did, man. I'm very, very curious. And we'll talk about this team a little bit later. I'm curious to see Raiders versus the Munich Ravens as a kind of, top half of the Central Conference rivalry. Of course, also Raiders versus the Surge. This will happen a couple times this year. I'm very curious, Raiders versus Ravens, see how that turns out. But there we go. We see the end there, 32-0. The Raiders T-roll. Strong.
Making a statement. Yeah.
Making a statement for sure, man. All right, Alex, this is a fun one. Out in the East, the Berlin Thunder and the Wrocław Panthers playing in Tarczynski Arena. I believe the final count was somewhere around 15,000 fans in the stadium. I didn't get to watch this one live. Alex, I believe you did. Talk to me about this fantastic game.
This was an awesome day for ELF football in Tarczynski Arena in Poland there. 15,000 fans, mostly Wrocław fans, but also a lot of Berlin fans in attendance making the trip out east. 88 points, almost 800 offensive yards in this one. Great debut from Stephen Duncan and the new Wrocław quarterback. He had 5 total touchdowns. He seemed in command of the offense. And fun fact, he found Jacob Marzon, the Polish receiver, for the first touchdown of their season. And he's actually the first touchdown scorer ever in ELF history. So there's a little fun fact for you. Yeah.
That is a fun fact. That's a very fun fact. Man, it's great to see that Stephen Duncan really had a strong debut here. Looking at stat line, 19 for 28, 230 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. The thing is, I had heard from a couple inside sources that maybe in the preseason, Wrocław wasn't so thrilled with Stephen Duncan. And, who knows when, you hear a lot of rumors and stuff like that, but to see him come out on the field on this big stage against an Eastern Conference rival like this and play his ass off kind of put rumors to sleep a little bit, at least in my opinion.
I didn't hear those rumors. I didn't have that tease. So I think he might have silenced those rumors in this one. But really, this was such an exciting game to watch. It seemed like every time one team scored, another team would answer. There were several lead changes throughout the game. And I was really, even though they lost, I thought Berlin's offense and Jacob Sullivan and the multiple weapons that he has in Aaron Jackson and Robin Wilczek, they were moving the ball really well. And it was basketball on turf, back and forth, lots of explosive plays. Really fun day to watch as a fan.
Yeah, and so I just got to watch the highlights of this, and that we're watching here right now. Jacob really looks quite poised back there in the pocket. He looks calm. I like that a lot. He's obviously a veteran of European football. And we're getting a message right here from our director, Maxi. You can see the extended highlights on the Game Pass. So I think on YouTube for free, you get the 7 or 8 minute highlights, but you can have the extended highlights on the Game Pass, which I will probably be checking out after this because I didn't get to watch this full thing. Alex, you were telling me off camera about a specific play with 12 seconds left in the half. What was this play?
Yeah, shout out to the Rosla OC. I think this play call takes some serious cojones to call. I believe there was under 2 minutes left. Rosla had the lead, and they ended up giving a reverse to receiver Daniel Bender, who then threw the ball and found Adria Botello Moreno in the end zone for sort of the game sealing touchdown to go up by 2 possessions with under 2 minutes. So one of a few reverse touchdown passes that we saw this week in the ELF. But I have to say that one was my favorite because it was the most clutch. A great throw from a receiver as well, Daniel Bender.
We love to get these kind of highlights. This is the type of stuff that'll go viral on social media. Exactly what the league needs. I'm looking at the stats right now, and an interesting point is, of course, the Panthers have 2 premier running backs, Jennedy Adams and David Brzozowski. And I think a lot of people were curious to see how they would split carries and what that workload balance would look like. Looking at the stats right here, it was all Brzozowski for the run game. He had 27 rushes to Jennedy Adams 6. But it seems like Jennedy was used more in the passing game. He had 3 receptions, 2 of them for touchdowns, and 82 yards through the air. So he was more of a kind of slot out of the backfield threat. It's interesting. What do you think about that, Alex?
Yeah, good problem to have, right? 2 great running backs. Seems like Brzozowski was really good, between the tackles, picking up those tough yards, while Jennedy Adams brought him kind of the big plays, catching a shallow route and taking it to the house. But maybe he'll get more carries next week because he showed he needs the ball more.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that is balanced throughout the year with both of these guys. But wow, what a start for the Panthers and the Thunder as well. I mean, they'll play each other again later in the season as Eastern Conference foes right here. So I'm really excited for the second matchup for those guys. But there we see the final score, 39-49. Another great game. All right, Alex. Now we're moving towards the West Germany region, sort of a regional matchup. The reigning champion, Rhein Fire with Jadrian Clark at the Cologne Centurions, also playing in a large Tivoli stadium, which had a great fan base there. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it was a great atmosphere in Tivoli Stadium, with good fan turnout. This game, it felt like maybe Rhein Fire had a little bit of a championship hangover. Can I say that? It didn't last long, but they definitely showed it. It felt like the Cologne came out a little bit hotter than the Rhein Fire in the first half. However, I think in the last 2 minutes, we saw Omari Williams have a 80-yard interception return. And then Jadrian Clark made this diving play right before the half to score. And I think that really took the wind out of the sails of the Centurions, if you will.
Yeah, man. I think it was interesting. We were talking about this off camera. I was a little bit, I mean, I know the final score didn't really reflect this. So obviously the Rhein Fire are so deep and they seem to often pull away in the end of games. But Cologne was kind of hanging in there for a while, and they looked better than I expected them to. This wide receiver and quarterback duo, apparently they've known each other since they were kids. I mean, I'm not entirely sure about this. Is what the announcer in the game said, that they've had a connection since they were 7 years old. So if that is true, cool to see them out here in Europe continuing that. And he had the receiver. He had an amazing one-handed catch that I think the highlight will show up on here pretty soon.
Yeah, we just saw that catch, Nick. It was an amazing one-handed catch from Connor Weddington, former Stanford product who spent some time in the NFL. I think he'll be someone the Centurions lean on. But here we see the pick 6 from Mari Williams, and I think this was sort of an early backbreaker for Cologne.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially right before the half right here. What a just big momentum play. And that kind of can really take the wind out of your sails as a team, especially when you're playing a team like the Rhine Fire. You can't really have these. They'll really capitalize on that. And with a team that has so much experience and depth and talent like the Fire, then they can really turn the tides here, especially something like this going into halftime. But I will say, I think that Cologne is a little bit more interesting than I thought they would be. What do you think is their ceiling here in the Western Conference?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. That conference is maybe the best conference in the ELF, but I'd love to see them upset some teams that are maybe in playoff contention. They definitely surprised me. I thought maybe their offensive line would be a weak point, but I thought overall their offensive line looked pretty good. And so, really, I think the Cologne it represents the league in a sense that the league is better top to bottom than I thought it would be at this time last year. And Cologne is a good example of that.
Absolutely. All right. I know this is impossible to predict, but off one game, Rhine Fire. Your opinion on the Rhine Fire for the 2024 season from this game? Are they repeating? Are the Rhine Fire repeating? Is it the same as last year?
No. I'm gonna go overreaction Monday and say no from this game. They look great in the second half, especially defensively. Right, they're flying to the ball, but we've had a new champion every year, and it's hard to go back to back in any sport. So I'm going to take the field from instead of the Rhine Fire. Since you're asking me straight up, yeah.
Very fair. Very, very fair. And the field is damn competitive this year. I mean, you've got about eight to nine teams that probably could really be in true contention, I think. I mean, we'll see as the season goes on. That'll probably narrow down a little bit, but that's a very fair answer to take the field. And we'll see how that plays out. So the Rhine Fire end up pulling away a little bit at the end there, 42-12 for that Western Conference matchup. Jadrian Clark and the Fire starting off 1-0. Now, we are moving out to Prague. The Hamburg Sea Devils, our producer director, Maxi, he's working with the Hamburg Sea Devils. He went out to this game for the Sea Devils to play the Prague Lions out there in the East. Alex, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, this ended up being a pretty good game. We saw the Hamburg Sea Devils kind of dominate the first half, and then Prague showed some life and had kind of almost a comeback towards the end of the game. But really, this was an exciting game with lots of big plays. We saw Javarian Smith make his ELF debut. We see a nice touchdown pass here. He found Theo Landstrom for 2 touchdowns. And later we'll see your guy, Jarvis McClam, make some huge plays.
Yeah, Jarvis looked great. I think it'll come up on here on the highlights in a little bit. I don't know. It was like a 90-yard touchdown, and he looked fantastic. It was a beautiful ball as well, right in stride. It's just good for Hamburg, kicking off the season with a win after kind of a shaky last season. But I was also a little bit impressed, I'll say, with Prague. I did think that Hamburg would kind of steam over them a little bit. Now, the final score doesn't necessarily reflect exactly how the game went. But apparently from Max, we were talking off camera, there was kind of a rain delay. And after this rain delay, Prague was really able to kind of switch the momentum and get things going back in their direction.
There was. I know you were at the Surge game, so you were probably bouncing 1,000 things. But as a fan watching, there was at least a half-hour delay. And we saw the teams take the field. And after that, Prague looked really re-energized, and they scored 2 touchdowns in a row after that and made the game a lot closer. But here we see the play we were just foreshadowing. A 99-yard touchdown, a beautiful pass from Javarian Smith to Jarvis McClam, looking like Tyreek Hill there 99 yards later.
He is, man. And look at him running 40 yards back the other way. He's got to be gassed after this. There we go. But he's hyped up. I think Hamburg is another team, maybe sort of in the same category, in my opinion, as kind of the Raiders, who were not given so much love. And maybe they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder as well. Because, maybe they're getting a little bit overlooked. I have a question, Alex. Javarian Smith, What do you think is his potential in the ELF? Can he be a top 5 quarterback in this league?
I think he's got all the tools. Maybe the offensive line, it would be my question there, if he can have the time to do it. But he seemed really accurate. Um, Obviously, you saw that 99-yard touchdown pass. He was able to buy time for himself. He's very athletic. So I liked his game, and I think he'd be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. But quick shout out to this running back here. We saw an 87-yard touchdown from Lucas Harding Candido, a young German running back. I think he had over 130 yards in this game. Easy to do after a 90-yard touchdown like that, but he was moving the chains all game long.
Yeah, man, great shout out right there. Then this is what he has: 7 attempts for 135 yards with this touchdown right here. We love to see it. We love to see European guys balling out like this. But in the end, Hamburg does pull away with a win. I think it's 31-21. But a little bit of bright spots for Prague, I think. I think Prague, there shouldn't be any reason why Prague can't develop in the same direction that Poland has. I mean, if they're going to be a few years behind, but kind of those tough Central European homegrown guys. It's a beautiful city that you can attract elite imports to, I think. And so they're making a step in the right direction here. I'm a big fan of their new rebrand as well. I think that matters. And so I think that the future can be bright in Prague.
Yeah, I think we saw their rebrand in the offseason, and I think they looked better. Definitely looked better on the field as well. Liked their uniforms; they look good, and like you said, it's a great city, so it has potential to build a good football program.
Yeah, exactly. All right, now to the final game, the one my favorite, the one that I was at. We've reserved a big block of time to talk about it. The Munich Ravens at the Stuttgart Surge. Alex, before I go into my tirade, let me ask you your thoughts on this game.
Oh man, yeah, this was the game of the week for me as well. I was really looking forward to this one. Man, got to give credit to the Surge. They came out and took care of business. But this was a fun game to watch, both offensively and defensively. The Surge looked like they had something to prove and really shut down the Ravens.
Yeah, this was an interesting one, man. And we talked about this on this show kind of all offseason, how the South Germany, Munich Ravens, Stuttgart Surge rivalry was really bubbling up and becoming something. I talked to Sean Shelton before the game, and he talked about how originally he thought there would be more of a rivalry of kind of Innsbruck Munich, especially because of kind of the history there and the proximity. They're very close. But it seemed to be more of a Stuttgart Munich rivalry, which is very, very interesting. This was an awesome game in the big arena. Ended up having about 8,500 fans there. Surge came out with these sleek black uniforms. I thought they looked pretty damn nice. Like those a lot. And I think the big takeaway for me was the Surge defense only allowing 5 points, 2 of those coming from a safety on a botched snap on a punt. You just got to give a shout out here to the Surge co-defensive coordinators. It's an interesting setup we've got there down in Stuttgart. Co-defensive coordinators Johnny Brenner and Cody Pastorino. These guys run a tight ship on that Surge defense, and these guys, they heard a lot of the buzz that Munich was getting throughout the offseason. The Joe Thomas. Munich's going to have the best O-line in the league, and I think the Surge just were very excited to come out and play, and they kind of put on a show there, man.
Yeah, it felt like big brother putting little brother down a little bit in this one. The Surge, they went to the championship last year. They've have a history of coming from Jordan Newman of dominance. So I think they put the little brother to bed in this one. Is what it felt like. Especially defensively, like you said, led by European talent, really for the Surge. Chris Malumba, Leander Strathman, Simon Butch. These guys were flying to the ball, totally shut down the Ravens' offense. Chad Jeffries couldn't get much going, and star running back Tomiwa Oyewu, 2 yards a carry. Yeah, not much going on for Ravens' offense due to the Surge great defense.
It's an interesting point. I think a lot of people were surprised when I had Nicholas Kandar on my top 5 running backs. This guy had a solid start to the season, 12 carries for 76 yards, but some really important, first downs, ran hard. It looked really great. And he was a huge part of that as well. And then here we see some Riley Hennessy, man, to Lewis Geyer. I can't say enough about Riley Hennessy's poise and his leadership ability here. A key thing to remember about this game as well is Darrell Stewart Jr., the Surge's American wide receiver. He got banged up in the first quarter. So the Surge played this and did this entire game without an American receiver and still were able to put up nearly 30 points. So that's quite impressive right there. It's going to be interesting when these teams face each other again, I think. We talked about it a little bit. Surge have so much more continuity from last year, especially in the coaching staff, whereas Munich, I think they need some more time to put things together. I think many people thought that they'd be ready to go, hit the ground run at the start of the season this year, but it looks like they need a little bit more time. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you said it. Kendrell Ellison, Joe Thomas, and that staff, I think them and Sean Sheldon, they had a little more expectations for week 1, and especially offensively, putting up only 3 points, really disappointing. And I imagine they'll come back reeling and ready to go in week 2. So, it's a week 1, so we got to take everything with a grain of salt. But yeah, shout out to the Surge defense. They were, if I had to pick an MVP of week 1, got to be Surge defense.
I agree with you, man. And one interesting point is I talked about kind of the recruiting battleground in South Germany. The Stuttgart Surge, the Munich Ravens stole a couple of key players from the Surge this past year. Raphael Zissler, defensive lineman, and then Marlon Wertmann, offensive lineman. 2 great players, great guys. I got to play with them for many years. Funny thing was, the Munich Ravens put both of those guys out as captains this week to go out for the coin toss. And you can kind of interpret this a couple different ways. You can interpret it as maybe a little slap in the face, like, hey, look, we got your guys right here. Or maybe it's harmless and it's just, hey, it's cool for these guys who used to play for this team to go out and be at the coin toss with their former teammates. You can interpret it either way, but I just thought it was an interesting point.
It's kind of like a WWE move, isn't it? I love kind of this like trash talk, these games the coaches are playing. But these teams were very chippy with each other. We saw a lot of extracurriculars. So I'm very excited to see them play again. I'm sure Munich will be gunning for revenge after this kind of embarrassing defeat.
Extracurriculars is a great way of putting it. It was chippy, man. And there were a lot of referees having to break up some fights and referees run on the sideline. And it was a nice, aggressive rivalry football game, man. So we'll see. It's going to be awesome when they play each other again. Alex, that's what we got, man. That's our week 1 of the 2024 ELF season. An awesome slate of games. What would you say are kind of some of your big general takeaways from this first round of games?
Yeah, I think, like I touched on earlier, I think this league is going to have much more parity than last season. It seems like teams are closer together. The talent gap has maybe closed a bit between certain teams. We're going to see more close games, less blowouts, which as fans we love. But yeah, really impressed. Overall level of play seems to have taken a step up from last season.
100%, man. And I think that's going to be huge. It's going to be great for the league, a little bit more parity in some of these games. A lot of the teams that maybe we considered at the lower end of the league are taking some steps up. For me, I just was kind of just so excited about how many stars there are, man. There's a lot of players that we could consider star players here in this league. That make highlights and are really root for great football players and great people as well. The league is littered with these guys, and it's fantastic. Couple points, housekeeping points. The league is aware of the technical difficulties with the audio from the announcers on the stream. There's some technical difficulties there that the league is totally aware of and is working, and we'll get those fixed for you guys so you have a nice crispy audio from those announcers on the Game Pass.
Yeah, absolutely. I think week one, there's always a few bumps, but overall, very successful weekend. I got to watch ELF Zone on my Game Pass. I had the multiplayer, multi-view going. It was great. Football was back. It felt almost like NFL Sunday to me. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. It does. It's like I remember on Saturday I was out with on a walk with my girlfriend. We are out in the park, and I was like, "Hey, we got to get back to the house. I gotta get on ELF Game Pass. I got to get the multi-view going. I got games to watch." It feels similar, man, to the NFL season. So it's super exciting to have that, and for us to have access to all of these games. And this is exactly what football in Europe needs to keep pushing and keep growing. But man, what a great start to the season, and it's just going to be just crazy from here on out. I think there's going to be a lot of storylines develop, a lot of great players and great teams playing some good football here, man.
Yeah, can't wait for week two. Some rivalry games next week. I know Raiders, Vienna are playing. I'm sure we'll break it all down on Thursday, but week two is going to be just as good or better than week one, especially there's three teams we didn't see this past weekend. Madrid Bravos, Frankfurt Galaxy, who's the third? Paris
Paris,
Musketeers.
yeah.
So some new wrinkles in for week two as well. So that'll be fun.
That's a great point, man. And I think those are kind of three of the most anticipated teams for 2024 to kind of see what are these teams made of this year. I know for me, I'm just dying to see what these teams put on the field. So this weekend might be even more exciting than the last one. All right, guys, that is going to be our first ever ELF Monday show. We're going to be doing this all summer, all year with the season. And I see in the chat here, Mari, you say what time on Thursday? Thursday is going to be the same time. So don't. This is just a totally different show. We got 7 p.m. European ELF live, and then we got our Monday show. So 2 shows. So hopefully no confusion there. And there'll be announcements and everything like that on social media. Alex, man, appreciate it. Appreciate your expertise.
Absolute pleasure. Hope we can do it again and give these people a double dose of ELF Live weekly. Yeah, it was so much fun and can't wait for week two.
Love it. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate all of your support here. And hey, we're getting started on a great season of ELF football. We'll see you on Thursday, guys.